So that's our whole goal this evening, is to give you as much advance warning as we possibly can to find shelter from this storm, because we don't know if it's going to ramp up or if it's going to weaken as it moves along. Looking at the setup in south central Kansas, there is even more humidity coming into south central Kansas. So these storms that started rotating south of Dodge City are now encountering some richer Gulf of Mexico moisture, and that does increase the likelihood that these storms are going to become tornadic as they move along. Doesn't guarantee anything, but we do now have a storm with a history of producing at least one tornado. So if you're in Anthony, you should be moving to a place of safety. We have an estimated arrival time at 7:44, so you've got a good 20 minutes before the storm, the rotating part of the storm, is going to be passing overhead. If you're in Harper, even though technically you are in the tornado warning, my anticipation is that you're probably going to get hit with more hail than you would any kind of threat from a tornado. You see that little hook that's hanging around this little appendage on the back part of the storm? That's the rotation that's being picked up by the radar, again, moving to the east and northeast. Also want to take note here of some storms that are to the south of the hook echo that we're looking at, coming from northern Oklahoma. You see from Amarita back to south of Kiowa. If we take the storm track off and you watch how this progresses over the last hour, we're going to have another significant merger of storms taking place in Harper County, and it does make it a very difficult assessment of what's going to be happening in the short term with this tornado warning. Sometimes when we have a big cluster of storms merging together, it does lower the short-term tornado threat. We'll see if that holds up here in southern Harper County, but at the moment, right along and especially to the south of K14, you should be moving to a place of safety, and that means getting below ground if at all possible. If that's not an option to you, remember closets and bathrooms. We always mention those locations because typically you don't find a lot of windows that are in those particular locations. So if that's your only option, that usually does provide some sufficient protection to ride out a storm like what we're dealing with here in Harper County. But we're staying on the air with you with this tornado warning. Again, for Harper County, the circulation just getting out of eastern Barber County, so that warning will probably be canceled here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. But we do continue with the warning across Harper County, and live pictures over there on the left part of your screen. That's Scott Roberts, who, again, him and Lance have been chasing storms for a number of years. And there in the center part of your screen, we can actually maybe, there you go, we take this view full. You've got your heavy rain and hail over here on the right. This is the wall cloud. And as Lance was referencing a little while ago, dropping some occasional funnels. Now, from this vantage point here, we just don't see any funnel clouds, but you can't miss that well-organized lowering beneath the main structure of the storm, which, of course, is up here. This lowering, the wall cloud, if you will, having a tendency to develop some occasional funnels. Lance did for a little while, reported to be brief, did have a tornado with a little bit of dust getting kicked up down near the ground. So a storm that we're watching with a lot of concern here, because as it does continue to move on to the east, moving through an area that we definitely want to continue to keep our guard up. Places like Anthony, Harper, you're probably going to experience some larger hail, but the circulation that we're detecting right now on radar is still well west of the Anthony area. Let's go back over to the radar as we continue to try to bring that video up to the real time and show you here the storm as it continues to track onto the east is going to be impacting the southern half, the rotating part of the storm, the southern half of Harper County, and that's why we have this tornado warning ongoing at the present time. Taking another look here at the wind here off to the west of the Anthony area. And again, the rotation, and it's worth noting here, we're using the radar out of northern Oklahoma to sample this storm. But what we're looking at here on a larger scale, you can see the greens and the reds, which we so often sometimes talk about. So this is the wind blowing away, and this is the wind blowing in, and that circulation counterclockwise is what we're picking up on as the tornado. So again, as we look at that picture there on the left, this is in real time. You're getting a chance to see not just the radar perspective, but what you would actually see if you were out there in southern Harper County looking at the storm, the part that's rotating, and Lance telling us that he has concern that maybe the tornado is becoming wrapped in rainfall. In other words, meaning there's so much precipitation and it comes completely around the storm, obscuring a really good, clear view of the possible tornado. We'll call it possible because we don't know if there's still, in fact, a tornado happening at the present time with this Harper County storm. But it is one that certainly has strong rotation with it. Your heavy rain, the hail that we've been covering too, which could easily be up to the size of golf balls or slightly larger, that's probably a more significant short-term concern for those of you in Harper. For those of you in Anthony, you're close enough to the rotating part of the storm that we would advise finding a safer place to ride out a tornado. If the storm does, in fact, have a tornado with it, it would certainly be one that you would want to be sheltered below ground if at all possible. And just a reminder of the safety tips. For those of you that have lived in Kansas for a very long time, it's probably second nature to you to know ride out a tornado-producing storm below ground. Remember, you want to put something sturdy above you that would protect objects from falling through the floor. If that is not an option to you, you don't have a storm shelter, you don't have a basement, remember that closets and bathrooms are good places to go. If you're out driving around, remember, you don't want to try to ride out a storm of this magnitude sitting there in your car. Last resort would be to seek shelter in a ditch. You want to find some place that's a little bit lower in elevation to give you a little bit more protection there. Again, tornado warning in southern Harper County. You can see the circulation that we're picking up on right now. It's south of 14, and Anthony is going to be next in line. I'll show you as this storm continues to move along. There it is, mostly moving on to the east. We do have a picture. This is actually from Barber County of the tornado, or funnel, if you will, as we take a look at it there. Again, from this vantage point, because we can't completely see all the way down to the ground, we have to call this a funnel. We don't know if the circulation extends from the base of the cloud all the way down to the ground, but at least from that shot there, certainly does appear to be a funnel cloud there extending from the base of this storm. Again, this was in Barber County several minutes ago, not in real time. We do have a couple of storm chasers that are out there this evening, including Rodney Price. We also have Lance Ferguson, Scott Roberts kind of teaming together on this Harper County storm. And notice over the last hour, because trajectory here is so key, if that movement holds up, it's going to keep it mostly south of 14. So we do have a Scott Roberts shot back up here as they try to reposition. Obviously, a lot of heavy rainfall hitting the windshield there as they try to find a little bit better view of the storm. But that mostly, to me, looks like the rotating part of the storm is moving due east at roughly 35 to 45. So if that path holds, there's a good chance that the tornado-producing part of the storm would pass to the south of Anthony. That would be some good news. But again, for those of you up in the Harper area, as we take another look at what the heavy rain, the hail situation is going to be, that is certainly going to be increasing. Right here, south of 14, that's where we have the rotation. Meanwhile, farther north, you get into this heavy rain and the hail, which we've already had a couple of reports now of hail up to the size of golf balls on this storm. Could easily go even larger than that. Looks like we just had a report of some damage now from eastern Barber County. And it does sound like we don't know what the extent of this would be, but this would suggest that the National Weather Service office out of Dodge City receiving a report here of some suspected tornado damage. Again, we don't know to what extent. Maybe it's just some tree branches. Maybe it's something beyond that. So a chance we'll be checking in on that from the emergency managers there in Barber County. But now the focus has really shifted into Harper County, and the tornado warning for eastern Barber County will likely be canceled early as the rotation has moved completely out of Barber County, continues to track on to the east. Want to show you a little bit larger perspective here because we've been zoomed in for quite some time now. As we do continue to look at south central Kansas, including Wichita, if this storm continues to move on an easterly path, it's mostly going to remain south of Wichita. And then you can see the storm that's in southern Kingman County, that northern fringe of that kind of breaking off and could become a factor, not just for southern Kingman County, but also in Sedgwick County. I mentioned Rodney Price a little while ago. He's in Mobile Weather Lab. Rodney, give us an update on where you are and what you've been able to see over the last little while.
Okay, Ross, we're on a county road here off to the east and northeast of the Kiowa area. We've got some heavy rain and some occasional hailstones that are starting to come down. Cale Chapman and I are in the Mobile Weather Lab right now. Got a little bit of hail coming down, probably, I would guesstimate, probably less than petty size at this point. We've got a considerable amount of wind. I can tell you on this little small county road, we've had a considerable amount of storm chaser traffic making its way to the east into the belly of the storm, and it is a nasty storm. We've got some very strong gusty winds pulling into this right now. We've got some larger hail starting to come down at this time. Kale, we may want to make our way back to the west just a little bit. Getting a little too close for comfort here. Our camera right now, by the way, ouch, is pointing to the east. So okay, hold it right there. So the circulation is off to our east and northeast right now. Sorry about that, guys. I'm doing two things at once here. There we go. We got a long line of cars now coming down the road. The worst of the circulation is off to our northeast. So any kind of imminent tornado threat, not at our location, but a lot of gusty winds feeding into this. So we've got a whole lot of people, as you can imagine, storm chasers making their way down this small county road, trying to get out of this storm. Ross, we're going to try to find ourselves a different vantage point. Unfortunately, we cannot see anything as far as any kind of low-level features or anything like a wall cloud or tornado. We just cannot see it with the rain that's wrapped around the backside of the storm. Ross?
All right, thanks very much, Rodney. Of course, stay safe, find a different position. You do see some healthy traffic there where they are located, again, near the Kiowa area, not Kiowa County, but the town of Kiowa, which is south of Medicine Lodge. And of short-term concern here, as we come back here on the radar, you can see we've got a lot of thunderstorms kind of merging together south of Wichita. This is going to be a very high precipitation event, and the visibility is going to be very poor. So when we can sometimes offer up a nice view of the rain-free base, a wall cloud, sometimes funnels and tornadoes, that is going to be a challenge because we have extreme precipitation happening with these storms. Notice what's coming out of northern Oklahoma, and all of this kind of merging together south of Wichita is problematic, not just for Harper County, but also Sumner County as storms get ready to move in on the Wellington area. Visibility with any particular cloud features is going to be next to impossible just because of the amount of precipitation that we have being produced from these storms. This is where we rely so heavily on Doppler radar because when we've got chasers and eyewitness accounts coming in, but getting a good visual of these storms can be really hard to do with the amount of precipitation that is being produced by these storms off to the south of Wichita. So again, as we talk more specifically about the tornado warning for Harper County, the circulation is still very evident. Looking at this from the Wichita radar, let's go back in, bring some more county roads and township roads into view. This is going to be south of 14. So the rotation that we have is right there on Southwest 40th Road and still west of Southwest 80th Avenue. For a lot of you watching this, those are just going to seem like numbers, but for somebody that lives west of the Anthony area, hopefully you're able to lock in on the exact location that we're talking about with the rotation, and it is south of 14. So for those of you north of town, heavy rainfall, probably some significant hail that could lead to some damage. We don't know about that just yet, but there does appear to be, at least based on the radar sampling of this storm, that the hailstones could go as large as maybe tennis ball size. Now, we haven't had anything like that reported, but notice those brighter shades of green, yellows, and even getting into some orange with this storm. That would estimate hailstones a little bit larger than tennis balls happening there on that Harper County storm. So again, we can't stress it enough. Even if we don't get any additional tornadoes produced out of the storm, this is definitely a beast, to say the least. We've got tremendous hail. We do continue with the circulation, the rotation that's showing up south of 14, and it continues to mostly move to the east. So that would keep it along and south of 14. For those of you in Anthony, we still want to encourage you to shelter from this storm. Hopefully below ground if that's a possibility, and it does continue on that easterly path at around 35 to 45. So now you can see it's kind of coming down Southwest 40th Road and mostly staying to the south of 14. And when I say mostly staying south, we're talking about the rotating part of the storm. There's hail and heavy rain that's happening north of this location that you'll want to remain away from windows and doors as this storm comes surging on to the east. So again, Anthony, here within the next 20 minutes, the circulation will be passing overhead. Let's bring you up to the current time as we continue with our tornado warning coverage here for Harper County. The tornado warning for eastern Barber County has been cleared. We anticipated that because the rotation now is completely contained in Harper County. And as we back the view out, What we're using right now is the wind sampling of Doppler radar to show you just exactly where this rotation continues to be. But as you look at the live pictures coming from Mobile Weather Lab, of course, Rodney and Cale Chapman were trying to find a little different view, having to pull out of the storm altogether because there's just so much heavy rain and the hail that they were seeing near the Kiowa area. So they're repositioning and lots of tremendous rainfall. Now we're getting a new hail report that popping up on this storm. This is, again, right here along K14. Let's see what we have here. This is hail being reported to be 2 inches in diameter. Again, that would be about the size of an egg. So that's pretty substantial. That is going to do some minor damage to structures potentially. Also probably bringing down significant leaves, if you will, from trees. So this is a big hail-producing storm here in Harper County. We do have some more pictures coming in. If you can safely do so, easiest way and the quickest way to get those pictures to us is at the bottom of the Storm Team 12 weather app. There's a little icon that says submit your photos here. Those come right into a folder, and we get a chance to share that with you. We've got some video coming in from the Goddard area. Obviously, some low-hanging clouds, some scary-looking clouds, but we don't have anything threatening in Sedgwick County at the present time. That, of course, obviously some good news, but you're going to see as these storms get in a little closer to Wichita, there are going to be some interesting-looking clouds. But the concern, the short-term concern of a potential tornado, destructive hail, tremendous rainfall happening right now on the storm that's down in the Harper County area. It looks like we just had another hail report come in. As we continue to track this here across Harper County, let's see what we've got here. This is once again right along K14 in Harper County. There you see hail up to the size of about $half or smaller than ping pong ball size happening right there along K14. While we've got your attention here, because we've been zoomed in and laser focused on the Harper County storm, let's bring Wichita back into view, and then we'll check in on some of these other thunderstorms that are happening farther north. You can see we do have a severe thunderstorm warning for Sumner County, western Cowley County. Getting some stronger winds now in the Ark City area, but the hail threat there is fairly small. Storms coming in on Wellington, certainly getting a bit stronger. Let's go ahead and check those out before we go and look at some other thunderstorms that have been ongoing north of I-70. So what's coming in on the Wellington area looks to me like we may be catching some hail, a hail threat with that thunderstorm. As far as what the estimated size is going to be, this is going to be a little bit closer to quarters as it comes in on Wellington. It could very easily continue to strengthen, though. So at the moment, quarter-size hail possible there. But notice the movement here. The stuff is coming up from the south. Within the next 10 minutes or so, the hail threat is going to be increasing in the city of Wellington. And then next in line, if that path holds, would be Belle Plaine over toward Conway Springs, as once again storms coming out of Oklahoma appear to be moving more to the northeast. But that is not the same situation out here in Harper County. This storm that's coming down 14 is mostly moving on to the east. And so if you're west of Anthony, again, we want to encourage you to stay sheltered from the storm, as there's still a strong potential that this could produce a tornado. And if it does have a tornado with it, it's most likely completely wrapped in rain, making it almost impossible to see. I can tell you, looking at some of the information coming into the Storm Center, we haven't had very many tornado reports with it, and it could be that fact alone, that there's just so much precipitation coming all the way around the tornado that the chasers and the spotters are just not able to give us an accurate read on exactly what this storm is doing there along K14 to the west of the Anthony area. So again, for those of you in Anthony, even though you may be looking out your window and it's just raining like crazy, some of you perhaps maybe have lost power. Maybe you're watching our coverage on your phone through the Storm Team 12 weather app. You should know that the circulation has not passed overhead just yet, and that does continue to move almost due east. So Anthony, within the next 10 to 15 minutes, we think, if there's an ongoing tornado threat there, it's going to be passing overhead. So that is something that we do need to continue to keep in mind as the storm continues to move on to the east. It's just buried in all of this rainfall. The hook echo that we sometimes see on Doppler radar is completely wrapped in significant rainfall. For those of you in Kingman County, you've got some heavier rainfall to your south. Looks like some rain now starting to move in on western side of Wichita toward Garden Plain, the Goddard area. You can see scattered thunderstorms up here in Rice and McPherson counties. And wanted to update you really quick here. We've got some bigger thunderstorms happening up here in north central Kansas. We've got warnings that are out for Mitchell County. We've got warnings that are extending up into southern Jewell County, Smith County, Osborne County, some pretty healthy thunderstorms, that mostly a hail threat in this part of the state. But remember, this is also where we have a tornado watch thinking that the short-term concern and the most likely areas to get a tornado in reality would be over south central Kansas, but this is another area of the state that we need to continue to monitor along Highway 24, both east and west of the Osborne area. Severe thunderstorm warnings are out in that part of the state as well. We'll continue to provide information as it comes in on what's happening there. But a lot of interest in what's happening in Harper and Sumner counties. Again, let's go ahead and take a look. This is the last 1 hour of imagery. You can see storms coming from Oklahoma, moving to the north. For those of you in Wellington, this is going to be heavy rainfall and hail. We do not see significant rotation in Sumner County. The same is not, or we can't say the same about the storm in Harper County that's now moving in on the Anthony area. And so as we come up to the current time here, let's go back in and check in on this Harper County storm that continues to move down Highway 14. Again, if you're in Anthony, you should be sheltered. We do have some wind damage being reported. Rodney Price in the area there. This is in eastern sections of Barber County. Do we have Rodney on the line again? Okay, so Rodney, give us an update here. We can see your picture from Mobile Weather Lab. It seems like you've encountered some damage there near Hazleton.
Yeah, we have. We've got quite a few tree limbs that are down here in the area, Ross. Let me show you the roof camera here on top as we take a look at, we're at Main and South First Street here in Hazleton, and I'm going to zoom in on some of the tree limbs that we have down here, not only just immediately to, there you go, not immediately to our east, but also around us here, around the Mobile Weather Lab. Let me zoom back out here. Those are tree limbs, again, that are down near Main Street and South First Street. And then we've got some other damage here showing up. As we pan the camera around, you can see some other tree limbs that are down at what looks to be an abandoned house here right at the southwest corner of this intersection. But we've got several tree limbs that are down here. And this is just the first that we've encountered here on the west side of Hazleton. We're going to continue to make our way up here to K2 and go east as we go on the backside of this storm. But Ross, right now we've got quite a few tree limbs down here in Hazleton at this time.
Okay, thanks very much, Rodney. You guys stay safe, and as the storm continues to move on to the east, we will have Rodney continue to follow in behind the storm and see if we get any other reports of damage. We told you a little while ago that we did have a report there in eastern Barber County of some damage. We didn't know to what extent. The storm is very ramped up right now, ramped up in the Harper County area. Once again, we've had the radar kind of switched over into the wind mode, just taking a look at what is happening. This is using the Wichita radar. The green, of course, is where the wind is blowing in toward Wichita, red away, and we still very much have a circulation that's happening to the west of Anthony. At the moment, it does appear to be spreading out over a little larger distance, which would indicate a little less likelihood that we have an ongoing tornado threat. Perhaps maybe the storm is mostly wind and hail at the moment, but we don't want to let our guard down just yet. Again, the tornado warning does continue for the Harper-Anthony area, believing that if there is a short-term tornado happening, it's probably closer to the Anthony area, but the storm may be producing significant wind and hail and not a tornado. We just don't know. We haven't had that many reports of a tornado because, as we've been pointing out, there's just so much precipitation being produced by this Harper County storm that the eyewitness accounts that you might expect just aren't there because they're not able to see it. That's basically a quick summary of what we think is happening at the present time. But using the radar now out of northern Oklahoma, again, right there along K14. There you see Attica coming into view, so the threat is most likely south and east of there, but it's very much right along the highway there where we continue to have a lot of our focus. Again, the circulation has not passed over Anthony yet. This is very much close to Southwest 10th Road and Southwest 80th Avenue. Again, for those of you that live in Harper County west of Anthony, you're probably going to be keying in on exactly what area that we're talking about, and that's where we're picking it up on radar, again, a larger scale circulation. We think that at a minimum, this is probably a significant hail and wind producing storm, but we just don't want to completely give the all clear yet that it's not producing a tornado because we just don't know for sure that that is in fact what is happening here in Harper County. So Anthony, we keep that in view here. Circulation looks to me like we're probably a good 3 to 4 miles back to the southwest of town. Let's see exactly what we're looking at here. So it's a little bit further than that, maybe about 5 or 6 miles southwest of town. And if you watch the radar animate, this is the last hour playing through, notice how it's ramping up here. This is the counterclockwise swirl, and if that trajectory holds, basically this would go right over the Anthony area. So again, we don't know if this is a tornado producing storm because we haven't had very many of those actual reports. But at a minimum, this should be a significant wind event and significant hail too. And as we saw last Sunday when the storms moved across Kansas, there were multiple areas that had significant damage from straight line winds. That could be a minimum of what we're seeing here in Harper County coming down Highway 14. And once again, if that path holds up, it's going to go very close, if not right over the town of Anthony. So you should be prepared for significant wind, significant hail, possible that we still have a tornado happening with this, based on my assessment there of what we're looking at from the radar sampling, again, out of northern Oklahoma here in Harper County. So the tornado warning continues in that area with the storm coming down Highway 14, a very dangerous storm for those of you that are in that immediate area. As we take another look here, because we've, of course, had a tornado watch out for a good chunk of south central Kansas. And this thunderstorm now does appear to be shifting a little bit more to the north and east. Let's kind of bring some other towns and counties into view so you can see for yourself how things are progressing. There's some heavy rainfall. We don't have a warning out for Kingman County. The same cannot be said for Sumner County. The storm's coming through Wellington. There's a potential of hail up to quarter size there. But the storms are now kind of shifting a little bit more east, northeast. So for those of you in southern Sedgwick County, which would be up here at the top part of your screen, be prepared because we could see the northern fringe of the storm drift just far enough north that we could find ourselves getting into a little bit of a hail threat here in the next 30 to 45 minutes. But this storm in Harper County is certainly the strongest thing that we have out there right now. It has a history of producing tornadoes. We don't know if there's still that ongoing threat happening right now in the Anthony area, but again, it's still got some pretty substantial rotation with it, and it does sound like there has been in the Corwin area now of perhaps a little bit of some damage there from the storm as it moved across the extreme western portion of Harper County. We do have some other thunderstorms in north central Kansas, and meteorologist Peyton Sanders here in the Weather Center with us too. He can jump in and talk a little bit more about what we're seeing north of I-70 because we don't want to let those of you in the northern part of the state out of our coverage this evening.
Yeah, something we have to watch carefully are thunderstorms currently in north central Kansas that could continue to produce some large hail. As Ross was just mentioning, that's our biggest concern with these thunderstorms right now once you get north of I-70, and they do in fact have some pretty significant hail cores. We'll show you the one here into the northwest part of Osborne County, right near the Alton area. It's moving off in an easterly direction, and you can kind of see some of those shades of purple and dark red. That's very likely we're dealing with some of the larger hail at this moment. Let's see what the computer's estimating. Some of the larger hailstones could be out of this thunderstorm, potentially up to 2 inches in diameter. That would be considered a very large hail with this thunderstorm as it's moving off in an easterly direction. It's moving east at about 30 to 35 miles per hour, so go ahead and put a track on that as that continues to track through the northern sections of Osborne County, and that'll put it into Osborne by about 8:10, Downs by 8:23. So this is your heads up for large hail potential as that thunderstorm continues to move off in an easterly direction. We have another severe thunderstorm warning here, parts of Jewell and Mitchell counties. These storms west of Beloit. Also, look right here. That is where we are likely dealing with some very large hail, very close to Glen Elder, and that storm is moving off in an easterly direction. Let's see what the computer's estimating the hail size could be on that thunderstorm. Once you get into those shades of yellow, that could potentially be some hailstones greater than 2 inches in diameter. So currently a hail threat. As Ross mentioned, there is a tornado watch still out for much of central and eastern Kansas. Let's get a chance to show you that here. Also a severe thunderstorm watch being posted in pink there for northwest Kansas till 1 o'clock in the morning. Severe weather will remain possible over the next few hours. We kind of have a break in some of the thunderstorms right now in central Kansas. Still a possibility that some of that might fill in later tonight, so we can't entirely let your guard down just yet. So through at least 11 o'clock or about 1 in the morning, this threat for severe weather will remain possible. Very large hail and damaging winds, but again, as Ross was mentioning, our greatest concern in the near term, at least, for a tornado is that thunderstorm that we're tracking there in Harper County in south central Kansas. So we'll continue to monitor all these storms very carefully here over the next few hours. Ross?
Yeah, and Peyton, I really think this storm in Harper County is a big wind event right now. Heavy rainfall, still an ongoing hail threat. And as we take a look here, this is another sampling of what the wind is doing inside of the storm. And those brighter shades of green that are showing up just west of Anthony, I want you to see this from a larger scale, because if you watch the last hour play through, you can see for yourself that counterclockwise swirl. It's on a larger scale. So I think definitely we're getting some tremendous wind with this Harper County storm. I don't know that it will leave behind the kind of damage that we saw last Sunday in some communities scattered across Kansas, but it certainly looks like it has the potential of producing winds of 60 to 75 there in and around the Anthony area. Now, the tornado warning is still up because you can still take a look at what we're looking at here in the Storm Center, and this is using the radar out of northern Oklahoma. Of course, there the wind is blowing away. There it's in toward, so it's a larger scale. We're probably dealing with something that's on a 3 to 4 mile scale here. From greens to red. So the larger the scale of swirl that we're seeing, the less likely it is that we're dealing with a tornado. But this could still be significant wind that's going to pass over the Anthony area. And as we saw, again, referencing last Sunday, because it's still so fresh in our minds, sometimes in the wake of these storms, you come out and you find significant damage and you instantly think it's a tornado. But we can't overlook the fact that straight line winds can sometimes do more wide scale damage and sometimes more significant damage than a tornado. So keep that in mind here as we continue with this ongoing tornado warning happening here in the Harper County area. We do have Scott Roberts' picture back up, and of course his view, kind of what we were seeing from the mobile weather lab about 15 or 20 minutes ago, significant rainfall, which is something that we've been reporting on too. This is on the Sedgwick-Sumner County line. And the Sumner-Harper County line, looking at the storm, again, tremendous rainfall. We can see that on the radar, but the concern in the Anthony area right now, in my estimation, would be winds of 60 to 75. Could easily be stronger than that, but that's just gauging off of what we're looking at here from the radar out of northern Oklahoma. Greens and reds kind of spreading out over a larger distance, anticipating that more areas will be hit by strong winds, more so than a tornado. But we want to keep you sheltered in Anthony until we see a different trend here on the radar, which right now appears to be significant wind. As for the rainfall, because this is something that we continue to see hitting Scott Roberts' windshield there, rainfall rates of 1.5 to 2 inches per hour are going to be very difficult to drive through. So this is what we're picking up on. How heavy is the rain coming down? And in some of these places around the Harper-Anthony area, we're talking about rainfall rates that could easily be at least 1.5 inches, if not 2 inches an hour or more, making it difficult to navigate on K14. Also, areas along K2 could be experiencing some tremendous rainfall too. So that's just going to be another challenge. And south central Kansas, including Sumner County, has had some recent rainfall. Could lead to some county roads. The ditches filling up a bit with some water there. So please keep that in mind. That's something we don't give a lot of attention to when we get into these scenarios, because we spend a lot of our time focusing on the wind and the tornado threat, but significant rainfall that hangs around a particular area for 45 minutes or an hour can lead to some localized flooding. So keep that in mind here on a Saturday evening. But again, short-term concern as we look at the wind in the storm right around the Anthony area and back to the west along K14 appears to be some significant wind. And once again, let's take another look here at the hail threat that's ongoing in the Harper County area. This is down from what we had about 20 minutes ago. That would be some good news, estimating now hail slightly larger than quarter size to the north of Anthony. So maybe that's a little bit of an encouraging sign of what we're seeing here in the Anthony and the Harper vicinity, but still a very dangerous storm. We do have more pictures coming in. Reminder, safety has to be first, and if you're well away from these storms and can submit pictures of what you're seeing out your window, we'd love to see them. Bottom of the Storm Team 12 weather app, you can quickly get them to us. What you're looking at here, these are mammatus clouds. You will commonly see these around big thunderstorms, and basically it indicates a very turbulent environment, but this is not a wall cloud. This is not a developing tornado. These are basically clouds indicating some significant turbulence around thunderstorms. They are quite common and sometimes really can put on quite a spectacular show. That is seen near the Wichita area. This was near the Alton area, and this, what you're looking at, this is a rotating thunderstorm. At the base of that storm cloud, you can fully appreciate what is happening here as you look at the striations or the rotation, the features that we're seeing in that cloud. Of course, there's the heavy rain and the hail over on the right, but in this vantage point here, you can see that arc that shows up in the cloud feature indicating the rotating that's taking place. We often mention rotating storms. That's what it looks like from a wider perspective when you can see the twist that's happening in the base of that storm cloud, really suggesting the whole thing is rotating. And rotating thunderstorms don't always produce tornadoes, but they commonly do produce significant hail, sometimes significant wind, and as we're seeing tonight in Harper County, some tremendous rainfall. I don't think that this storm is producing a tornado any longer. I think this has really switched into a significant wind, heavy rain, and still some hail. Now, as we mentioned a little while ago, the hail indicators had come down a little bit on this storm here in eastern Harper County. So as we continue to watch this whole thing unfold, south of Wichita, at a minimum, significant wind, heavy rainfall is what we're picking up on, but it does appear that the tornado threat in the Harper vicinity may be slightly lowering. Let's take another look here at the radar animation. So you can see up here in Wichita and Sedgwick County, we've got some storms coming out of Kingman County. Those will eventually be getting into Garden Plain and Goddard. And then we've got storms down here in Sumner County that are moving to the north. So it's only a matter of time before we begin to see some of this active weather coming into Sedgwick County. And if you're out driving around this evening, maybe you're getting ready to go south on the turnpike, you're going to run into some of this heavy rainfall. If you're going northeast of Wichita, you're safely moving away from a lot of this thunderstorm activity that's happening in the immediate area. Bring some other towns into view here as we continue with this ongoing tornado warning, which we would expect based on the trends that we've been seeing lately. This is probably going to be switching into a severe thunderstorm warning, but you see the leading edge of the rain coming in on Cheney, Viola, the Norwich area, getting some pretty good rainfall right now. It's only a matter of time before Clearwater and Mulvane start to see storms coming out of Sumner County. As those drift on to the north, you'll begin to see some heavier rainfall, perhaps some wind with these storms too. Let's take a look here and see what we've got as far as the wind potential is as these storms continue to move to the north. Doesn't look that alarming to me. Of course, as we go back to the south, we can still pick up on some of that wind in the Harper-Anthony area. There may be some wind happening east of Harper, and that would be right along, that would be right along 160 there in eastern portions of Harper County. And let's bring this into view here. So there you see 160. There may be some wind here in the northeast part of Harper County that we need to be paying attention to, also near Argonia. We do have more pictures coming in from the Mobile Weather Lab. Again, they're seeing some dark-looking skies as they've been trying to kind of reposition and find a little better vantage point of the ongoing storms. When we talked to Rodney last, he was in the Hazleton area, which is actually out there in the Barber County area. There was some tree damage there from storms that went through a little earlier today. And now we've kind of shifted our focus east of there with some higher wind gusts possible east of Harper, west of the Argonia area. There may be some stronger wind gusts of 50 to 60 possible in the northern part of Sumner County, but it doesn't look like the storm is quite as intense as it was 20 or 30 minutes ago. We'll continue to see if that trend holds. But I would say in the Harper County area, certainly between Harper and Anthony, there may be some stronger winds happening right there along 160. So please keep that in mind. The tornado warning, by the way, probably not going to be with us for too much longer, but all of this active weather that's happening to the south of Wichita does bear watching because we're still very much in an environment here where something could flare up. And if this path holds, these storms continue to move to the northeast. It's possible we could see some severe thunderstorm warnings for parts of Sedgwick County. We don't know for sure based on the trends that we're looking at right now. It looks like mostly heavy rain and some wind that would be associated with this Cowley, or I should say the Sumner County storm that's kind of in between Belle Plaine and Conway Springs, but that is basically drifting on to the north and east. Bring you up to the current time. Let's expand the view, and then we'll get another update on the storms up in north central Kansas with Peyton here shortly. But lots of heavy rainfall and wind possible across Sumner County back into eastern Harper County, and we are getting some wind reports now from the Cowley County storms. Let's take a look at this from Strother Field, just to the south of Winfield. Looks like we've had a 60-mile-per-hour wind gust reported at 7:43. That wind now would have shifted on to the north and east, and it looks like now a report of some wind damage coming from the Arkansas City area. And it sounds like some trees and power lines are down in that area from storms that have kind of drifted through the western side of Cowley County. So a little bit of wind damage there near Ark City, and a wind gust measured at 60 just to the south of Winfield near Strother Field. All of this, by the way, again, as we take another look at the last hour playing through, you can see this thunderstorm complex kind of moving on to the north and east. So we think it's only a matter of time before some of this very active weather gets up into Sedgwick County with potential of more severe thunderstorm warnings coming at the moment. New warning now for eastern Harper County. Extreme southeastern Kingman County does cover a large swath of Sumner County for the active weather that's happening, strong winds, heavy rainfall in some of these places. Let's go back over to Peyton.
Yeah, I want to get you a quick update on the thunderstorms that we're tracking in north central Kansas. I also want to show you the new future track data coming in on kind of what's going to be happening and our thoughts on the rest of the evening. First up, though, we continue with the large hail threat in Osborne County, where you see those deep shades of purple and dark red. That could be some large hailstones, maybe still up to golf ball size or maybe 2 inches in diameter, moving off in an easterly direction. So heads up in Osborne. That'll be heading your way here shortly. And then in Mitchell County, still a large hail threat here. This could be some golf ball size hail heading toward Beloit. That storm moving off in an easterly direction. So two severe thunderstorms that we're tracking currently in the north central part of the state. As we kind of take a look at the wide view, there's kind of that gap in the activity in central Kansas, but I do want to show you future track because although there's not much on radar right now, there is the possibility that as we head into the rest of the evening, there could be some more isolated thunderstorms developing. The atmosphere is still very unstable. There's a lot of humidity in central and eastern Kansas. So the threat remains for some severe thunderstorms. Here's 11 o'clock tonight. We could be looking at some continued scattered thunderstorm activity along and north of I-70. That could continue with the hail and wind threat into the nighttime hours as those storms will eventually be crossing over into northeast Kansas outside of our viewing area once we get past about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. So the potential still there for scattered thunderstorms over central and eastern Kansas. Again, as we look at the radar picture right now, wider view of things, you can see we have, of course, Ross has been talking about the storms in south central Kansas, but those additional thunderstorms in the north central part of the state, and again, severe weather remains possible over central and eastern Kansas, especially as we head through the next few hours. Ross?
All right, thanks very much, Peyton. We are getting reports of damage now to the west of Anthony. That is where Mobile Weather Lab and Rodney Price is at the moment. Rodney, give us an update on what you've come across.
Okay, Ross, yeah, we are west of Anthony. I'll have to look up exactly how far we are, but we've encountered this home that's, I'm going to turn the windshield wiper back on there for you. We've got pretty considerable damage here with very large tree limbs. We've got some power lines that are down as well at this location. Looks like potentially the part of the roof is missing from this home. Again, we are west of Anthony, and it is a considerable damage here to this homestead here. Again, west of Anthony along K2. And we've got quite a few other people that are coming up here to potentially render some aid or something of that nature. But again, this is a homestead to the west of Anthony that we've got damage. Again, large tree limbs down, power lines down, and some apparent roof damage here with this home on the north side of K2. Ross?
All right, thanks very much, Rodney. Of course, assessing some of the damage there. Of course, one of your first questions might be, was it a tornado or was it wind? That's something that we may not find out until tomorrow when the opportunity is there for some people to go out and assess whether or not it was straight line winds or a tornado. So we simply do not know at this point in time. What we do know is there was a pretty strong circulation going through that area, so perhaps maybe it was a tornado, but we don't want to draw that conclusion just yet. Short term, we continue to focus a lot on what is happening with the wind and the heavy rainfall, and I'm going to take you in and show you what's happening here along 160, because I think what's coming at us up into Sedgwick County is mostly going to be wind as we see what's happening here across northern Sumner County. This could be some stronger winds, maybe 50 to 60. Now, we haven't had anything like that confirmed for sure, but north of Argonia, north of Wellington, these brighter shades of green that are showing up on radar coming at us from the south could indicate some stronger wind potential, not a tornado. We certainly don't see a significant twist in any of this happening south of Clearwater, south of Conway Springs, but my assessment would be what's coming at us from the south would be a possible wind of 50 to 60, so this could prompt some additional warnings for parts of Sedgwick County as the storms are now mostly moving to the north and east. We'll go back over into the traditional mode that you're used to seeing when we track thunderstorms here in Kansas. A lot of heavy rainfall in some of this. In fact, it could still be coming down at 2 inches per hour, which is really difficult to try to drive through. You get back out here into parts of Harper County into those purple and white shades, and there we're getting an estimated rainfall rate. Let's see what we've got here along K2 northeast of Harper. rainfall rate there of more than 2 inches per hour, and that's what's coming at us from the south. So next in line would be Derby, Mulvane, Clearwater, Viola, some of those locations that are likely going to experience heavy rainfall. The good news we can say is that it does not appear that we have an imminent tornado situation with any of this across the Sumner County area, and what may soon prompt some severe weather warnings for the Sedgwick County area. Let's take a look here at the last hour as we've been showcasing. This stuff is now kind of shifting on to the north and east. You'll also note some new thunder showers that are going up from Benton over toward El Dorado, back toward the Bel Air vicinity. None of that looks all that intense. We do need to keep an eye on what's coming at us, though, from the south, because it looks like most of this is going to be heavy rainfall and wind. The hail threat may be slightly diminished here on this Sumner-Cowley County storm. We did, of course, have some stronger winds reported in the Winfield area, and that area has since calmed down just a little bit. Now getting some hail reports. Let's take a look at some of these pictures. This is actually from the storms that Peyton has been tracking up in north central Kansas in the Osborne County vicinity. It looks like about nickel size there. Nickel size, of course, falling a little bit shy of that criteria of a severe thunderstorm warning. 1 inch or the size of a quarter is kind of what we're looking at for when it comes to a criteria for hailstones there. Cocker City up in north central Kansas, again, you're looking at more hail. We appreciate all of these pictures. It does help us track the Kansas thunderstorms, but you have to keep safety first and foremost, and if you can safely submit those pictures at the bottom of the Storm Team 12 weather app, that will be the quickest way to get your information to us. We'll try to turn those pictures around and showcase those here as we continue with our severe weather coverage. But at the moment, no longer a tornado warning in effect in Kansas. That's the good news. We're severe thunderstorm warning now. Tracking this across the Sumner, eastern Harper County area, extreme southeastern Kingman County, and this stuff does continue to make a track to the north and east with some new thunderstorms starting to go up now off to the east of Wichita as we expand the view just to set everything up for you here. Again, thunderstorms continue to fester over south central Kansas. Heavy rainfall, some wind. We do not have a warning for Sedgwick County, but we are carefully monitoring. So if the situation changes, if we get into a tornado warning, if we start to detect some stronger winds, which at the moment for Wichita and Sedgwick County might be some wind between about 50 and 60. That's our estimation right now. We will certainly be watching this carefully, but we'll come back on the air throughout the Saturday evening to provide more updates. But right now, without a tornado warning, we're dealing with severe thunderstorm warnings. We'll continue with our coverage on 12.2, but be back on the air throughout the evening with more updates unless the situation changes. Stay with us.